In his fantastic book on the arts, Culture Care, Makoto Fujimura develops the idea of border stalkers, those who live in the in-between places, in between tribes, parties, geographies, and social strata. Historically, border stalkers have always faced persecution and suspicion. They don't quite look like one side or the other side, and so our highly taxonomic brains can't situate them anywhere. It's a fruitful metaphor to contemplate as a Christian because the redeemed body, I mean this both individually and corporately, the redeemed body is quite literally an in-between space. Primarily, the redeemed body exists in between heaven and earth. But if we obey the Great Commission, we will also be between ethnic and socioeconomic groups. Paul, when he was at the Areopagus, epitomized this in-betweenness in Acts 17. He's proclaiming the kingdom of Jesus while surrounded by Greco-Roman idols. The temptation for anyone entering a missional space is to either retreat into their own monocultural enclave or to go native, leave behind the distinctives of God's kingdom and simply conform themselves to the people that they're trying to reach. When you do that, you cease being a border stalker. The minute you become indistinguishable from the milieu all around you, you are not at the border. I've been thinking a lot about this with digital ministry specifically. Digital space has its own ethics, norms, epistemology, and language. It's a habitat designed to habituate us to certain behaviors and practices. The question is, how do we live as digital border stalkers? Within a few hours, one heretical TikTok video can be viewed by hundreds of thousands of people. Without digital border stalkers, there can be no digital resistance to that kind of thing, much less a digital contextualized version of the gospel. But the other temptation exists, which is that we go native, and it's equally dangerous. We become exactly like the internet. On the same day that Graham issued his warning about retreating from the internet, someone else wrote that Christians need to be, quote, incredibly online. On the surface, both posts sound similar, but in reality, they are worlds apart. To be highly online is to go native. It is to immerse yourself not in the in-between of digital and analog life, but instead to spend an inordinate amount of time reacting on social media, consuming content, and worrying about digital kerfluffles. Nonetheless, being highly online is a dire choice because you will be fully habituated to the digital world if you give it all of your mind and a lot of your time. You will start taking off peace and putting on pugilism. You'll take off patience and put on reactivity. You'll take off joy and put on cynicism. People who could have been peacemakers end up becoming hardened tribalists online. They expend more energy tearing down institutions than building them up. This is the way of the digital native. He knows no in-betweenness. Life is online. And while I've been critical of the new Christian nationalist right in the past, my perspective on them has somewhat changed in recent months. I'm less convinced that the movement reflects well-developed ideas as much as the movement is a failure to border stalk. The Christian nationalists have all gone digital native. Samuel James summarized it well in a tweet. There's a reason that Christian nationalists / the new right see Twitter and TikTok as vital places of engagement. These digital spaces are epistemological habits that favor superlative, knee-jerk discourse and measure authority in terms of swarm power, likes and retweets. It is in the best interest of reactionary worldviews to relocate conversation away from static media into social media. Social media blurs the line between argument and jargon, reason and tribe, truth and in-group. Something worth pondering is how long social media has been a preferred harbor for those who want to deconstruct mainstream sources of authority. The horseshoe is for real. Samuel James is right. The reason why the highly online right looks so identical to the highly online left isn't because they share worldviews, it's because they share habits formed by a shared habitat. So, how do we live as border stalkers online? Well, first, border stalkers must constantly measure our speech by Jesus's and Paul's ethical standards. You know, those old boring words you don't see much online? love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Second, border stalkers must live under analog scrutiny. My non-digital friends who challenge me when my words depart from Christ's ethical standards, they are my greatest gift for my online life. Third, border stalkers must build online, not just react online. Border stalkers spend more time building, making things with words and images than reacting, because the buildings last and the buildings upbuild others. Reacting is primarily about burning things down for the sake of self-expression. We signal to others who we are by saying what we are against. But border stalkers understand the shape and structure of non-digital life, namely that we need institutions to thrive in our life together. And that's why they seek to translate those in-person structures to online structures by constructing positive, beautiful visions through their online content. Fourth, we must measure the consequences. Border stalkers are attuned to digital incentive structures. They understand surveillance capitalism has been designed to addict people to platforms so that their attention can be sold to advertisers. Given that reactive, emotional content is best suited to the platform's goal, that's exactly why their algorithms promote it. Border stalkers will always be tempted to play the algorithm's game by going native and producing the kind of trashy content it boosts. But because they understand the analog cost of this kind of content, namely the deconstruction of local institutions and churches where people actually live their lives together, border stalkers hesitate before they participate in the burning of institutions online. Learning to live well in digital habitats is perhaps one of the most important missional prerogatives of the 21st century. Churches and Christians must learn to empower the border stalkers in their midst while keeping them grounded in analog reality. We need to let these people live between the digital and the analog. Now, on the flip side, border stalkers, they must not mistake someone's Christian self-identification online as a sign that they are a fellow traveler and a true border stalker. Too many Christians have already gone native online. They aren't really Christian anymore, even if they think that they're fighting the good fight for Jesus. They aren't. They're just serving the AI idols, training them for a kingdom of hardness and cruelty.